So before starting the next topic, let's clear the previous all the topics, right? So few questions for you. Yes, good afternoon to all. Okay. Voluntarily, anyone can answer. Fine. If you are not answering, then I have to pick randomly anybody. Okay. First question. What is encapsulation? You can check it out in chat also. Fine. I'm writing the question, so nobody will say that you are not audible. Okay. What is encapsulation? Just 2 minute revision and then we'll move on to our next topic. Wrapping up of data and methods. Correct, Kandar? Great. Any other
Enclosing
answers?
something.
And what is the exam? Yeah. And what is the example of encapsulation? Example. Class. Yeah. Correct. Class is an example of encapsulation. Yeah. Yes. Second, what is abstraction? What do you mean by abstraction? Anyone?
Providing essential details.
Quickly, quickly. Yes. Okay. So showing only the essential or important details and the rest of the things will be hidden, right? Yes. We know how to operate it, but we didn't know it's working behind. Yes. So we don't know the mechanism. Fine. Data abstraction is a process of providing only essential details to the outside world and hiding the internal details. Yes. Correct, Shyam. Aziz, Rahul, Anjali. Correct. Yes, Janvi. Great. Fine. Third question. What is inheritance?
Inheritance
Inheritance.
refers to the inherit the properties of upper class to the lower class.
Okay, fine. So you can say parent class to child class or
Yes,
base
ma'am.
class to derived class. Right? Yeah, correct. Fine. Fourth question, that would be what is object and what is class? What is class and what is object? Anyone?
A class is a block of details, or it's a building block.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And the object? Yes. Anyone? Class is a user defined data
Ma'am,
type, or you can say
object
structure.
is instance of class.
Yes. Yes. Correct, Shubh. Class in C++ is a building block that leads to the object-oriented program. Yeah. Correct. Correct. Right.
Ma'am, a class
And
describes
just
the
last
concept of the
question.
object.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Class will be a blueprint for the object. That also you can say. Okay. And the last question, what is polymorphism? What is polymorphism? Yes. Anyone?
Ma'am, polymorphism is like a function which allows us to perform a single action in different ways.
Yes. Correct. 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 So you can say that one thing, many forms, right? So yeah.
We can use that function
Yes,
for different data
Ashish.
types. Same name function.
Ashish, you can mute yourself. Ashish Oja, you can mute yourself, please. Ashish, someone message to Ashish to mute himself. Hello, am I audible to you guys?
Ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 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 fine, fine. So I've given you an example of this polymorphism previously, and we were discussing it, but due to the short of the time, we have not seen it perfectly. That what we will do is, okay. My screen is visible to you guys. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So I was telling you that, for example, you are having one void addition function, fine. So in that void add in C language, what I used to do is I'll be having only the name as an addition, whether I'm having two arguments or three arguments or two arguments, but with the different data types or something like that. Fine. I was asking this thing only. Maybe it was not clear to you that question. So I'm writing this again. Okay. Um, Such a way you are having total of more than 50 functions. Okay. Lot many functions that you are having. Okay. One function maybe you are having add 48 or anything like integer, integer, float, integer, float, integer, something like this with how many arguments? 6 arguments or 7 or 8 or 9, lot many function that you are having. Okay, so when after all this function definition, when you are actually calling that function, invoking that function, if I'll say that I just need to call one function, add something, okay, and I'm having the argument like 55, 67.5, then 80 integer again, 90 again integer, then 80.5, that is float, then 100. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 arguments are here. Okay. So which function I need to call? Which function I need to call? Getting my question or not? Previously, I've asked you the same thing. So if you are having this 50 functions, this is your task as a programmer that you have to search it out actually for integer, float, integer, integer, float, and integer. Such kind of function I have written somewhere, right? And that function I need to find it out. Like void add 32, 33, 34, 35, and so many functions I'm having, which is actually showing only the addition, right? But I need to check it out that such kind of data type wala function, the name what I have given. If it is an integer, integer, float, integer, float, integer, then the function name is add48. If such kind of data type like integer, float, integer, integer, float, integer, so maybe it is add 45. Let's say an example, right? For example, this is only my function. So I need to check it out every time. Whenever I'm calling this 50 functions, I need to check each and every time that what is the name of actually this addition if I am having such kind of data type. Getting my problem actually, then I'll give you the solution. Yes or no? Anyone can unmute and answer.
Yes, ma'am.
So I hope you are getting at least the question. Fine. What is the difficulty actually that we are facing in C language, right? And then the solution
Exactly.
is the polymorphism, which is, yes, which is the function overloading. That is my solution. Why? Because now in C++, with the use of this function overloading, I can keep the function name same for all the different functions. The condition is only that you need to change the number of arguments or the data type of that argument. Okay, that is only the condition. So for example, if I'm having this void add, I'll be having integer, integer, I'll put it integer, integer, and my function is over. Again, I'll be having second function with the same name, means the name will be same, add, add. Just the argument will be different. Here I'm having float, float. Previously I was having integer, integer. And I'll make more than 50 functions with the same name, that is addition. Now my task would be easier one because I don't have to find which exactly which function is there who is having such kind of data type. I'll simply call what? Only add. That's it. And whatsoever my argument is there. Now this is the task of the compiler, that compiler will match the function that, okay, first argument is integer, second one is float, then integer, integer, float, and integer. So which function I need to call from this add function? So I'm having total 50 function with the same name, add, 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 and all. Then compiler will find the suitable function. So my task is over. Getting my point? What was the problem in C and now what we are having in C++ as
Yes,
in
ma'am.
terms of this polymorphism? Yes, perfectly. This I was trying to explain you in the previous lecture, but short of the time, we have just discussed that problem, not exactly, right? Okay, great. So that it was. This is function overloading. And if I'm having one function eat, where I'm having no arguments, it's okay. Second function eat with some different argument, one argument, okay. Eat, again, different kind of data type and one argument, so it's okay, right? So my function name will remain same, which is in C language, it was not possible to keep the function name as it is same for all the functions. You need to change it, of course. Otherwise, compiler will get confused that which function to call. Okay. So this was what we have discussed. Now the next is dynamic binding. Dynamic binding, actually, you will get to know more when you will be familiar with the inheritance. Then we will apply the polymorphism. And then you will get to know this, what is actually the dynamic binding. Then also this is actually the basic OP principles, and I cannot skip this topic right now. I cannot say that, okay, when we will see the inheritance and polymorphism unit as a fifth and sixth unit, at that time we will discuss this. But I'm just giving you the overview. If you are not getting, then also it's fine. You will get this thing once we will see the inheritance and polymorphism, right? Because if you don't know about what is inheritance and what the actual programming and hierarchy of that inheritance, then you will not get to know this thing. That is but obvious. Okay. So dynamic binding, that is also known as the late binding, static binding and dynamic binding. Static binding means what? It is known as the at the time of the compiler only. If I am writing such kind of function that add, this is my function call, right? Add this function. So this is actually known at the time of compiler. Okay. At the time of compilation, compiler know this which function I need to call. So known by the compiler means compilation time only you know this thing. But dynamic binding is what? At the runtime only you will get to know that which function will be called at first. Fine. It means that the code associated with the given procedure call is not known until the time of the call at runtime. So till the runtime, you are not knowing which function will be called first. Now here the first, second, third, what it is actually. Just look at to the figure. I'm having one class that is shape. So here you can clearly see what here inheritance is there. You can compare this figure with this. Is it so? Right? One parent, three child. So same figure I'm having over here. One parent, three child. So shape is my class who is having a method name or a function name that is called draw. Fine. So there is one function named as draw. It would be having some formula, right? It would be having something that is not of our concern right now. Then it is having three child, triangle, rectangle, and circle. Okay. Each and every class is having the same name, draw, not a single word, DRAW, draw. The same function I'm having in my all three child. Now, if I'll compare that, okay, whose draw method will be called first, then either it is of a parent or it is of a child. If it is a parent, then there is no competition, single parent, his draw method will be called. But here, three child. So whose draw method will be called first? How we will know this thing? Because everyone is having draw, draw, and draw. If I'll simply say draw method, simply execute it. You will ask me, ma'am, which method? Either it's a method of triangle, either it's of rectangle or circle. Which method you want to know? I'll simply say draw. That's it. Now, which draw that you have to decide. So this will be decided at the run time, not at the compile time. Because compiler don't know. Compiler only know that, okay, draw method will be there. But which draw method will be executed, that compiler even don't know. Fine. This is called the dynamic binding. So it is associated with the polymorphism and inheritance. A function call associated with the polymorphic reference depends on dynamic type of the reference. Here, I mean, this thing you will get more when you will be having this polymorphism and inheritance concept. Actually, in the 6th unit, when you will implement the same program with the use of C++, at that time this will be clear. But right now, just let me explain you a simple thing that your parent will decide with the reference which method will be called first. Okay. For example, I'm having 3 students and I'm saying that just develop one program, fine, and I'll randomly give the name of the student and it will show me the code. Okay. So wherever I'm pointing and or whosoever's name I'm taking, that person will show me the code. So if I'm having 3 students like Tanvil, Tarun and Tulsi, right? So if I'll say that Tarun, show me your code, so wherever the parent is pointing out, that class method will be executed. Fine. So if I'm saying that Tarun, you have to show me the code, means the draw method of Tarun will be executed. Getting my point? So that will be decided at the runtime. So every object will have a draw procedure. However, this draw will be redefined in each and every class. This draw method's code will not be same. Okay, because the shape is the different one. And draw, I have a rectangle, so the different vertices or the things, field color or everything will be different in rectangle. Same way different in circle, different into the triangle. So this method's code is not same. They all are having its own method, right? But the method name is the same. Okay. So at runtime, the code matching the object under the current reference, that will be called. If I am asking about the Tarun, then Tarun will only show me the code, nobody else, right? So draw method will be, that class will be called, whosoever is referenced. Okay, getting my point? I hope this thing is somehow clear to you. Anyone is having any doubt regarding this dynamic binding? Anyone? I hope from the live example you will get to know that what I'm trying to explain you, right? Anyone can unmute and answer. So we'll move on to the next topic. Anyone? Sleeping after the lunch? Okay, fine.
No doubt, madam.
No worries.
लंच बाकी है मैम.
Okay. Okay. Oh, fine. No
मैम आपने
worries.
भी नहीं किया
Okay.
होगा अभी तो.
No, I've done. I've... Okay. So the next topic, that is message passing. So object-oriented program that consists of a set of the object that communicate with each other. The message passing name itself says that there is something regarding to message passing. So I'm passing message to you and you are replying me. So we both are two objects. Okay. One object want to communicate with the another object and they are passing their messages with the we can say a function, right? So that is called message passing. Two objects will talk with each other. That is called message passing. For that, what we need to do is, first we need to create a class, of course, right? And define the objects and its behavior. So we will be having behavior means functions, of course, that we have talked, right? So first we will create the class, related attributes and function. Secondly, we will create the object of that class, different objects. And third, then we will establish the communication among that objects. Okay. So objects communicate with one another by sending and receiving the information on much the same way as the people pass the message to one another. right? If I'm doing a message to you, you are doing message to me. So we are communicating. So we two are the objects. We are sharing some information, right? Through some method, via its the use of WhatsApp or via its use of Telegram or something. So that is my method. That is my function by which way I'm communicating with you. Okay, and which information we are passing actually. So that would be the string, of course, right? String or integer or any kind of data that I'm used to write to you, right? So the concept of message passing makes it easier to talk about the building the system that directly model or simulate their real world counterparts, right? It would be easier to talk about because each and every time every object would be having some dependency to the other. The other person need to transfer their data or they need to communicate. This thing you will get to know when your operating system subject will be there. Fine. Common file sharing will be there. We are dependent on others. Fine. So a message for an object is a request for the execution of a procedure. Procedure means function. So we are requesting to invoke that function. And then by invoking a function, we are receiving object that will generate the desired result. Whatsoever we are getting as a return of that output, that is our answer. And message passing involves specifying the name of the object, the name of the function means message, and the information that to be sent. Here in the figure, just ignore employee dot, right? Just ignore it. Rest of the thing, that salary and name, which is very similar to your function. Here the function name is salary, okay? And whatsoever the argument that you are passing, for example, here is the name. I want the salary of this particular person. This is what you have communicated. Okay. So after this function call, you will get the salary of that particular person, that whosoever is the name you have given, you have passed as an argument, right? So if I am passing that salary of XYZ, then you will get, okay, 50,000 is the salary, right? So this is nothing but just a function. So salary is said to be over here message, and the name, that is information. Now this is what we have talked about the C language somehow, but now this is C++. As I already said that if you are having any of the class, then you will create the object of that class, right? So here I have created the object that is called employee. Employee is the name of the object, right? And whatsoever the functions are there, they cannot be called directly without use of object. You cannot call it, you cannot invoke it. Why? Because now they are not the normal functions, they are actually part, or you can say member of that class. So you don't have any rights that you can directly access that function. No, you cannot. Fine. So for that, what you need permission, and permission means you need to create object. So object is the only bridge via what you can access the methods, means functions, as well as data. Okay. So here the employee is nothing but it's the object name. So now you can understand that employee dot salary of name. So salary of name, that is nothing but a function, but this function is now a part of one class. So I need to call that function, I need to invoke that function via object name and dot operator. Okay, so employee dot salary of name. So employee is object, salary is message, name is the information. Okay. Any doubt in this dynamic binding and message passing? Any doubt? Fine.
No, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. No. Right. Thanks. Okay. So the next is, oh, અત્યારે નથી. Yeah. Fine. So next is the access modifiers. We have already discussed some of the things at the time of difference of the C++, or we can say difference of this POP and OOP, right? You will be having access modifier or access specifier, which will actually protect your data, right? If you are making it private, then nobody else can directly use your data. If your data is the protected one, means your child can access the data, but nobody other uh, person can use your data. And if it is a public one, then anyone can use your data. This is what the access modifier. But with the figure, it is very clearly mentioned. See over here, there is one kid. He is inside the house. Okay, so that is called the private, because he is the right now safest one. Okay, he is safe because he is inside the house. Matlab, if your data is inside the class and you will make it as a private, then nobody can access it. This person is there in this playground. I mean, it's within the home only, right? So he's the protected one. Okay, and this person, he is outside the home. Okay, outside the home means it is the public, means anyone can access this data somehow and no one. Okay, so access modifiers are used to implement important features of object oriented programming that is known as data hiding. Access modifiers or specifiers in a class are used to set the accessibility of the class members. Class members means either data or you can say functions. It sets some of the restriction on a class member that not to get directly accessed by the outside functions. Means nobody else can directly use your data without your permission. And you have set some of the things like it is private, it is protected, it is public, so nobody else can use it. I've previously I've given you an example for the same about your mobile phone pattern lock. Again, I'm repeating this example. If you have put any of the pattern lock or security code or a face recognition, anything, any code, then that data is totally private to you. Okay, that data is totally private to you. Now nobody else can use those data without your permission, because they don't know what is the code, right? So they cannot access it. That is for sure. Second, if the same example, if I'll talk about the inheritance, because whenever the inheritance will be there, then and only then this protected keyword is in picture. Okay. Otherwise, if there is no inheritance, this protected is having no meaning. If inheritance is there, then and only then this protected has been used. So, for example, your father is having his phone, but generally the son, we are using their phone easily, fine. So, whatsoever the pattern or whatsoever the daddy is having, but we know that code because we are the child of him, right? So, father has put some of the pattern lock so that the other persons cannot use his data. But child is having that access, so only the child can use those data. So now if the data is the protected one, only parent and child, this two can only use that data. Third party cannot use those data. Getting my point? What is protected? Okay. And the public, that you know already, if it is public, anyone can use it. So public member is accessible from anywhere outside the class, but within a program, right? Same way, private member variable or a function that cannot be accessed or even viewed from the outside the class. Only class and friend function can access the private members. Here, friend functions, I have already given you the same example that if you have put any of the pattern lock, but your friend know your pattern because he is your best friend, right? So he know your pattern lock. So he can also access your data. So one is you and the another one, that is your friend. Only two-person can use or you can access that data. Okay. And the protected one means a protected member variable or function is very similar to the private member, but it provided one additional benefit that they can be accessed in child classes, which are called derived classes, means parent and child. So if parent is giving that this is the protected one, so the child can use it. But if parent have put anything as a private, then even the child cannot use it. Okay, because they don't want to give you his password. It is just like that. Okay. So here is the figure. You can easily identify three specifier: private, protected, public. Here three categories. First, within the same class. In derived class means there is the concept of inheritance. Okay. This is the concept of inheritance. One is parent and one is child. So in child class, is this accessible? They are asking this. And the third one, that is outside the class. Okay. So within the same class, if I'm having private member, of course they can use it, because though it is the private one, but they are in the same class, so any member can use it. Why I put the private? Because I don't want to share it with outside of the world. Fine. My family members can use it. So private is accessible within the same class. Protected, yes. Public, of course. Okay. Then in derived class. So what will be there in derived class? If it is a private one, nobody can use it. Whether it is in derived or outside the class, you just have to remember that private can be accessed within the class. That's it. Not outside of the class. So everywhere you will be having this no and no. If it is protected, yes, in child class that is accessible, but outside the world, outside the class, it is not accessible. Same way public members are available everywhere. Anyone can access it. So everywhere, yes. Right? Right now you don't know what is hash include, IOStream, or this using, namespace, STD. So this thing we will see in our next lecture only. What is actually the syntax and all about the C++, right? But right now only you can check it out this. Here is, I'm having one class is a keyword, then the class name. So I have taken it as access, right? And in that, any of the variable that you want to specify, particularly access specifiers, then you have to write like this. For example, private, that is a keyword, colon, right? And then you just have to declare the variable as you were doing in your C language, that integer a equals to 10, right? Same way, that is for protected, then colon, and then the variable. Same way, public, colon, and then variable. Okay. I hope there is no doubt in access modifier or access specifier. Any doubt in this?
No, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Then the next topic, that is typical C++ environment. So now anyone can tell me that in your C language, whatsoever the program that you were saving, that is with what extension?
.c.
With what extension? Yeah, dot
C++.
So this is said to be your, oh, not in C language, that is with .c, right? So that is known to be as your source code, right? Now you need to compile it. So after the compilation, which file will be generated? Anyone can tell me?
.cpp.
Anyone? No, after compilation.
Dot
In
.obg.
C
.exe.
language. In C language.
exe.
Yeah.
In C language.
You both are the correct. Yeah, yeah. So I'm showing you the same thing. Okay. Once I'll open this blocks, okay, programs, C programs. For example, I've compiled this program that is 1.c. Okay, so after that, when I'm compiling and running this program, this two file will be generated. One is the executable and one is .o, means object file. Okay, these two files will be generated if you use the code blocks. Then same way in C++ also, you will be having these two files only. As I'll show you my .cpp. Here you can see this is the .cpp file. Fine, because in C++ our source code file extension will be .cpp. Okay, so after compiling and running this, again I'm getting the same application, I mean that executable and this object file. This I'll get. Okay, so here again back to this. This is how your actual compilation or linker loader, what they will do. Here is the whole process. Fine. First, you will be having your source code file, whether it is .c or .cpp. Fine. Here, if I'll consider .cpp file, then I have some code like if else kind of statement or some general statements and everything. But here somewhere I'm having my library reference. Okay, here somewhere I'm having my library reference, because you will use a lot many things like set w kind of things or something, that manipulators that you will use in CPP. So that manipulator's definition is giving in some header file, that is IO manip or such kind of, that you will learn. Don't worry. Fine. So here somewhere I'm having that library reference. Simple. Once the compiler will compile this code, what will be generated? Compiler's task is what? Role of the compiler is what? Convert your high level language to machine level language, because computer understands only this binary language 0 and 1, right? So the combination of 0 and 1, this will be converted. So after this compilation, library reference is as it is. Okay, just the rest of the code will be converted into your zeros and one. So this will be your object file. Now the role of the linker. Linker will do what? Linker will link this library reference to your program. So here is your library file, who is having the actual meaning of this library, that 0101110 something like that. Fine. So that will be again added to your program, and finally this executable file will be generated, who is having even this library reference 0101. That will also be converted. Okay. The whole process we will see in theory also. First is phase one, that you are creating a program. So this will consist of editing a file with the editor program C++ source code file names, often end with the .cpp extensions. Right? If you are using any Unix or Linux platform, so at that time you can use such kind of editors like gedit, nano, medit, etc. Right? And if you are working with Windows, so you will be having this Notepad++ or some IDEs like Dev++, Turbo C++, Code Blocks, etc. Fine. I'm using Code Blocks. You can use any of the editors as you can. Then second phase, phase 2 and 3. You are pre-processing and compiling the C++ program. Now, anyone is having any idea that is what is preprocessor directives? Preprocessor directives.
Hash include.
Anyone? Yes, hash include. So yeah, that is one kind of directive which would be having your library file, or you can say header. Any other preprocessor directive?
As defined.
Any other, if you remember? Yes, that is your macro. Good. So has defined pi, that pi, and you are giving the predefined value that 3.14. Fine. This is your preprocessor directive. So the name
Using
itself says that
namespace.
before this processing, yeah, that will also be the directive. Okay, but right now I was just discussing about that what C language preprocessor directives you know, because I haven't explained you using namespace till. Okay, great. Then also you know it's good. Fine. So a preprocessor, the name itself that it will be processed before your compiler starts its process. Fine. So a preprocessor program executes automatically before the compiler's translation phase begins. So once the compiler will start its process, before that preprocessor directives will finish their process. So wherever you have written that pi, that will be replaced with the actual value, that 3.14 or so and so, whatsoever the value is there. Fine. So that will be replaced before the compilation phase. So the C++ preprocessor obey the command called preprocessor directives, which indicate that certain manipulators are to be performed on the program before compilation. Fine. Then compile the program and run. So here in Unix or Linux, you can compile this program like G++. So that would be your compiler, right? Then whatsoever the file name .cpp, then -o, which will generate actually the object file, and then the file name whichever you want to give it. This object file, if I want to give the name, that is A, simple, short and sweet, right? I'll just want to give the file name. For example, my first tutorial program is there. So how I'll compile it? G++ tutorial1.cpp -oa. That is my file name. Fine, object file. And I'll always run that object file only. So /a, and that will be executed. Okay. But in Windows, if you are using Turbo C++, you can use the for compilation and run that Alt F9, Control F9, and into this code blocks F5 and F9, right? Build and run directly. You can use even F9, right? So this is for Windows. Then phase 4, that is called linking. So linker link the object code with the code for the missing functions to produce an executable program. These missing functions are, you can say, the library definitions and all, right? So linker will link it. And then phase 5, that is loading and the execution. Because whenever you are running your program, at that time that program will be there into your primary memory, means into the RAM. If your program is in RAM, then and only then it will be executed. So you have to load that program from your disk to RAM. Fine. So the loader will do this for you. So the loader takes the executable program from the disk and transfer it to the memory for the execution. So this is how your actual C++ program will be compiled and run with this many process. I hope there is no doubt in this. You all are clear with it? Any doubt in this? Anyone? Fine. So no one is having doubt. Okay, fine. One is asked Ritesh. Okay, fine. No doubt, right? Okay, great. So let's have one more topic as we are having more 5 minutes. So yeah. C++, of course, your head file section where you can write it down in C language has included include stadio.h, conio.h, and so on, right? In C language. And in C++, you will be having a library like IOStream, right? So hash include IOStream. So header file is used in the program, prototype declaration for the functions, then user-defined header files. All the processor directives are written in this section, like using namespace std, that even you can write it down over here, or you can use that hash define pi 3.14 or such kind of things which you want to make it as a constant, and just giving the example of pi, you can declare any of the variable over there, right? So such kind of things where pre-processor directives or the header files or anything, that will be there in this section, header file declaration. Second, global declaration section. So global variables are declared over here, but generally in C++ will be used to with this practice that we are not declaring any variables as the global one, because we are more concerned about our data. That is why. Then the third, that is class declaration and method definition section. So class declaration and all the methods of that class, these are defined over here, right? Class declaration, class is the keyword, then whatsoever the class name, for example ABC, then in that class it would be very similar to the structure, right? You are just writing struct, then whatsoever the structure name, then the curly braces, and inside that you used to define different data types variable, right? But here we will be having variables as well as the functions, right? That is only the difference. Okay, so data and functions, that would be there in this class. Then you are having main function like void main, that was in C, but in C++ by default the written type of main, that is integer. Okay, so we used to write integer main, and once you have written integer main means the last line should be written something, but if you are not returning anything, then simply return 0. So this is only the practice that how we are writing it, right? By default, this is given as according to the syntax, that you are writing integer main, not the void main. Okay. So each and every C++ program always start with the main function, and we can create the class object into this main, because we have seen the example of class car. So you can create the object of that class car into the integer main. Okay. So this is what the C++ program structure. Any doubt in this? Because we are about to finish our first
No, ma'am.
unit. In next lecture, we will finish it, because just 2 to 3 topics are remain. Rest of the things that we have covered. Okay, and your
No,
programming
ma'am.
will actually start from your second unit. Yeah, okay. From the second unit, you will be having your programming syntax and everything, right? Till now, we are actually just going through this OP principles. Then how we will apply it from the next unit, we will see that. Okay. Thank you all. So I hope you don't have any doubt in this section. So yes, thank you all. Thank you. Yeah. So now you can just type your enrollment number. Okay. Your enrollment number, and you may leave. Enrollment number, and you may leave. You may enter your number and you may leave. So once you all will leave the meeting, I'll stop the recording. Fine. Thank you all.